All right, welcome to a new episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we're doing another Marvel movie. We're looking at Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the ultimate conclusion to Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And what do they call it? The Infinity Saga, I think, or something like that? I don't know. You know that I enjoy these Marvel movies generally, but I'm not a big Marvel nerd or anything like that. However, we have a guest who's a pretty big Marvel nerd. We've got Bill from the Great Albums podcast on the show for the first time. The Great Albums is a podcast that, although it just kind of ended its regularly scheduled weekly episodes, is one of my favorite podcasts that I actually do listen to on a regular basis. And I was on their Tenacious D episode, and it's great to have Bill here on Piecing It Together now. So I'm really happy to have him. I think we have a great conversation for you guys to check out. Before we get into it, I want to remind you all, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we talk about all these movies that we talk about on the show. I also want to take a minute here at the top of the show to thank everybody who has been listening. If you're following us on social media, you know about this already, but we recently cracked the Apple Podcasts top episodes list for the first time with our Midsummer episode. It got all the way up to number 130, which, is pretty far from number one, but I will take it. These episodes, we are a small independent podcast, and it's been growing and growing since we started this show a year and a half ago. But I did not expect it to grow at this kind of rate, and Midsummer really just blew up that episode. I wish I could say I knew how or why, but all of my, tracking and stats that I have really are not pointing to exactly how this episode got so many damn downloads, but it has doubled my monthly average downloads just with this one episode alone, and it's only July 12th. So it's just absolutely crazy. So anyone out there who has been listening since the Midsummer episode, I would love to hear what you think of the show. You can email me directly, bydavidrosen@gmail.com, or you can, of course, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And you can just tweet at us at PiecingPod. One way or another, I would love to hear from you guys. I want to know what you're thinking of the show. We want to keep making this a better show for everybody. So, I really enjoyed doing the show, and I plan on doing it for a long, long time. So, hey, if you're out there, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're subscribed. And let's get into this conversation about Spider-Man Far From Home. All right, so today on the show, we got with us Bill, who I met when I guested on his podcast, The Great Albums. We talked about Tenacious D's self-titled debut, which is a great album. And I'm happy to have him here now on Piecing It Together. Bill, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. I mean, this is clearly, I think, most people who have seen this new Spider-Man are very happy with it. We didn't talk beforehand. I don't know if you were as happy with it as I think you thought you were going to be. Hopefully you did enjoy it.
I am 100% satisfied with it.
Beautiful.
And I'm speaking as a complete Marvel nerd. Not just the MCU, but also the comic books as well. I was just telling my coworker the other day, who just discovered that I read comic books that I've basically been reading comic books since I could read. And my first comic book was a Spider-Man comic book. So it was a Spectacular Spider-Man issue. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the story is that Spider-Man is with the Outsiders, I believe is the name of the group. It's former villains, so the Prowler, Rocket Racer, and a few other Puma. So semi-villains, and he's hanging out with them, and they're about to go up to the Avengers and be like, "Hey guys, we need your help with something." And suddenly Spider-Man decides to attack them instead. And it turns out that he's been replaced by what's the character's name? It's like the Cosmic Phantom or something like that. And like he's like a doppelganger and he takes over Spider-Man. And it's that was one of the first comic books I ever read.
That stuff stays with you, I guess. We were just talking before we started rolling about video games, and I split. You obviously split your time between music and comic books. I split my time between music and video games. Were kind of my thing growing up. I of course knew all the comic book based video games, but I'd never really got into the comics. But of course, as a movie guy, I've been there for most, if not all, of these. The MCU and all these various comic book movies that have basically taken over all of cinema now.
Have you played Maximum Carnage? The Spider-Man
I'm sure
game?
I did back in the day. Yeah, that I remember it. I just don't really remember if it was a game I like played through and actually beat and everything. But I remember it had like the coolest ads and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
It was a really hard beat 'em up game. It was very, very difficult. I don't believe I ever beat it either, despite owning it and playing it for hours upon hours.
So, why don't you tell some people, because it's your first time on the show, why don't you tell people about you and your podcast and your bands and that kind of stuff? And, we, of course, do plugs at the end, but I just want people to know a little about you.
Yeah, so I have been for the last 5 years a podcaster on a podcast called The Great Albums. It is a music podcast that we take a different album of music each week and talk about what makes it great. And we tie it all together with a track-by-track review. And I basically say that same thing at the intro of every episode. And we've been doing it for just about 5 years now. And we recently decided to kind of retire it. It's not going away completely. We could still do it whenever we want. There's nothing stopping us. But our regular episodes, we used to do an episode every Monday, and now it's going to be occasionally you might get an episode, and we're probably going to take a good long break for a little while. We'll be back before the end of the year, but we're taking a break with that. And
how many great albums did you guys cover in your run?
More than 200.
Damn.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a lot of albums.
Yeah, with the bonus song Thursday episodes, I think our final count of all episodes was something like 360-ish. Yeah.
Jeez.
So it was quite a lot of episodes. So if you're just hearing my voice for the first time and going, that sounds interesting, you got plenty of podcasts to go and catch up with.
Yeah, it's a great podcast too. I mean, I was so happy when you guys had me on for the Tenacious D episode. I mean, it's one of the podcasts I actually do listen to, and so I was like, this rules.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode. A lot of times we kind of get very serious about the music that we're talking about, and getting to do today's Tenacious D was so much fun. And we kind of picked up on that vibe of Tenacious D and had fun with it, which was really nice. It was a thing that was just a really fun, lovely way to spend the afternoon talking about Tenacious D. I am also a musician, and I play bass in a band called Fake Pockets. We have been together a while. We're a pop rock band, kind of indie sounding stuff. And we have a few singles out. We have an EP coming out this fall. And we've got some shows coming up that I guess I'll plug at the end. But if you enjoy, kind of rocking singer-songwritery stuff that has a power pop vibe to it, then that's kind of what we do.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And you can check that out at Fake Pockets, all the places you find social media and music. Just look up Fake Pockets. You should be able to find it. We changed our name specifically because the old name was impossible to find anywhere. So now we're the only band that's called Fake Pockets, so we should be pretty easy to find.
Nice. Good name. I like it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Right on, man. Well, let's jump into talking about Spider-Man. I I just saw it the other day, and it is I joked on Twitter that I'm really looking forward to this one so I could talk about Jake Gyllenhaal a whole bunch. But I'm going to give you the chance to speak first. Why don't you go in with your first puzzle piece?
Okay. I'm assuming that spoilers are all on the table here.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna try and kind of do this in order of the movie itself. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that my puzzle pieces aren't going to be puzzle piecely enough.
Okay.
Or, as far as like film criticism goes, I don't think I really have the vocabulary to talk about that. I couldn't reference, going, oh, that looks like a shot that Hitchcock would do.
Sure.
I know the Jaws shot of like, the camera zooming in while it moves backwards thing. And I know that, and I know a few other references, but I wouldn't really say that I'm that. I kind of base some of this stuff more a little bit on tropes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I thought of examples of those tropes.
There you go.
So
that works. And luckily for you,
Yeah.
I don't think Hitchcock ever had drones create a artificial reality. So it should work out well for you, I think. So.
Are you sure? That sounds
I don't
like
remember
the plot
that
of North
one.
by Northwest, I think.
It might have happened. I don't know. I haven't seen all his movies, so
Right. Yeah, me neither. Yeah. So I guess my first one here is basically I went with the idea of the character of MJ being the disaffected teen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the puzzle piece that I went with, and I kind of came up with two,
Okay.
if that's okay. I don't know if it is.
Sure.
But I went with Daria and Ali Sheedy's character in The Breakfast Club.
Nice.
Of being kind of the MJ character, not Mary Jane. The MJ character being kind of snarky, a little bit, she's kind of always a little bit ahead of everybody as far as, all the social interactions go. And she totally understands everything that's happening around her.
Sure.
But she has this very removed detachment from the world. And so I felt like that character has shown up in many places over the years. And those are the two that, popped into my head. Of course, because, the first, this version, MCU Spider-Man, was very much, they were trying to be the Breakfast Club superhero movie kind of thing.
Yeah, that works with that analogy there too, because it absolutely was what they were kind of going for. I think if we had started this podcast back when Homecoming came out, we probably would have talked about Breakfast Club for sure. And
because there was that photo that they released.
Oh yeah, that's
the
right.
promotional photo of them in the Breakfast Club poster pose.
Totally.
Which was pretty cool, yeah.
And yeah, Zendaya, I don't really know the other things that she's done. I mean, I know she's like this pop icon right now, but she
Supposedly,
does a great...
yeah, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, right? But I mean, she does a great job in the role, and she's got like a really good thing going, and I really like her take on it. And I don't know how it compares to other, outside of movie versions of MJ, but it's definitely an interesting take on the character from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's more in line with the Ultimate Comics version of Mary Jane, who they do more often reference as MJ there, I believe. Where in the Ultimate Comics version, that was the kind of reboot that they made in the early 2000s on the back of the movies. And the idea was kind of like, okay, we'll recreate Spider-Man for new readers. And the person who wrote that, Brian Michael Bendis, he ended up doing it. It was so good. And Brian Michael Bendis is one of the best comic book writers out there. And he did, several hundred, up to like 100 and some odd issues of this universe that is basically a total recreation, but it was so well done. And in that version, Mary Jane isn't the model actress kind of ingenue that she was known for in the original Marvel universe and in the Sam Raimi movies.
Right.
Instead, she was more of a nerd who was Peter Parker's best friend growing up. So, and that was that's a little bit more the Zendaya version.
Sure.
But the Zendaya version, she's not Mary Jane, she's Michelle. And she's basically a wholly created new character that's inspired by Mary Jane.
Gotcha. I didn't even realize that. I didn't know that it was Michelle. That's interesting.
Because in Homecoming, she's Michelle in the entire movie, if you recall. And and I remember watching that movie going like, oh, that's the girl. It's not Liz. It's not the character of Liz. Mm-hmm. It's Michelle. It's like, she's interesting. Why do we keep watching her? It's like the camera kept finding her in all the scenes. And then at the end is when she goes, they're like, okay, Michelle. And she goes, my friends call me MJ. And that's where, and then everybody in the audience went, oh
yeah, that's the part I remember. So, I didn't know I wanted it until now, but I kind of want a Daria movie starring Zendaya. I think that would actually
that'd be
great.
Yeah, that'd be totally awesome. Totally piss off all of the trolls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They'd be angry as hell, but it would probably be great.
Yeah, she would be awesome in that role, actually. Totally agree.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go with my first puzzle piece. And, kind of like you were just saying about how like a lot of your puzzle pieces are based on specific scenes or tropes or things like that. This one actually is based specifically on a certain idea from within the movie. And that is, going to Mysterio and his whole thing of creating this, this whole fake version of reality that people don't realize that they are in, and everybody around, including Spider-Man and everyone else, nobody really can tell that they're in a fake reality. I was reminded of last year's Mission Impossible Fallout, when to get the secret code from the bad guy, they've got him in a hospital room that seems so perfectly real, and he's watching the news, and there's Wolf Blitzer on the news talking about how the bad guys won and everything, and it turns out the whole thing was fake. Every last bit of their reality was fake. And it was like such a great moment, and such a great fake out moment, and so well executed within the reality of the movie. It just seemed so real, and I think Mysterio does that as well. He's totally fooling everybody down to their entire core to like actually think all this is happening.
Yeah, I think that we just hit on something, because I also have a Mission Impossible as one of my puzzle pieces.
Nice.
A different one, but I think that just the whole fake out thing, which was kind of Mission Impossible's gimmick, the TV show, and that with the masks, which I'll throw that out there. That's probably more Spider-Man villain called the Chameleon would be more that, but. Which is one that they should do in the movies at some point.
I'm sure they will.
Would be a great combo to do with Mysterio, actually. And so just the whole idea of like that fake out thing, which is Mysterio's entire background, is that he's faking everybody out all the time in some way. It's even the things that you think, like you're always, when you're reading the comics or, the cartoon or anything like that, whenever Mysterio shows up, that there's something that they're going to find something fake. And then later on, they're going to find something that you thought was real all along was definitely fake.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that exactly is why I so hope Jake Gyllenhaal comes back, because I think that there is room for him to come back in this world. I think he's just so fantastic. I don't know if it's a one and done for him. Obviously, with that kind of a character, anything is possible. So, they certainly could find a way to bring him back.
Yeah, I really felt that he and Tom Holland had really good chemistry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he felt, I don't know, like this version of the MCU Spider-Man stuff, so far they've given us two really good villains that feel connected to the character of Peter Parker. Yeah. Which is something that, I always felt was a little bit missing in the other movies. They always tried to force it a little bit, and now they've done it so naturally both times. And not just connected to Peter Parker, but also thematically it works as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. It seems like a lot of my friends who are just like major Spider-Man fans, like they just can't stop talking about how great the villains are in these last two movies, and how they've really just done it right with the villains. Which is something
they
the
have.
MCU has had a little bit of trouble with over the years, is good villains.
Totally true.
Yeah.
But that's one of the great things about Spider-Man as a character. By the way, can you tell I'm a Spider-Man nerd?
Yes, I've noticed.
He's definitely my favorite superhero of all time. And I mean, he's had his ups and downs with different writers. But one of the great things about Spider-Man, and one of the tropes that his story should always have, is that he has a personal connection with the villains that he's going up against.
Mm-hmm.
And they always reflect either him in some way or reflect his own kind of existential crisis that he's going through at that moment in his life. And this one, it's he's kind of out in the superhero world on his own for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's looking for a mentor.
Yeah.
And because of that, Mysterio can so easily pull the wool over his eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
So I guess I'll go with the Mission Impossible theme here.
Okay.
And I was thinking about the trope of the mentor turned villain twist
Mm-hmm.
that happens occasionally. And one of the ones that I thought of was Jim Phelps in the first Mission Impossible movie.
Okay, yeah.
Is that, you go into that movie thinking that, because he was the main character of the TV show, which I never watched, but, I think probably like my friend's dad was like, oh, he's the hero right there. And I'm like, are you sure it's not Tom Cruise? Not, because who plays him in the movie?
Jon Voight.
Jon Voight, thank you. And so, it's big actor. You think that he's going to be the star of the movie. And then at the end of it, the twist is that he was actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then also similar to that, the other one that I went with, I think, and this is the one that in literature people tend to point at, is Saruman in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Also, same kind of thing. You think that because he's the White Wizard, right? In the beginning of the movie.
Sure.
Or in the beginning of the series, he's the White Wizard. And then in the middle of the Two Towers, I believe, is when it's been a while since I've seen the movies or read the books.
It sounds about right. I mean, it's a lot of movie to remember exact moments.
Yeah. So in the middle of the Two Towers is when he reveals his true colors, and all of a sudden he is actually the bad guy. And I think that's, and that was done very well here. Although for anybody who knows Mysterio's character, he always portrays himself as the good guy first.
Right.
That's always how he appears. And then eventually it turns out, of course, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's all just fakery going on around it.
That's so funny. Like, as a Spider-Man fan, like, that trailer must have just been like of course this isn't, what it seems like.
Yeah.
You guys know exactly what's happening here.
Well, did you know prior that Mysterio was definitely going to be a bad guy?
I mean, I guess I kind of assumed it just because he's such a big actor, and I don't know, it just seems with these movies, if he's going to be a good guy, he probably would have been there for the last Avengers movie or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just seemed so crazy that they would just all of a sudden introduce a new hero,
Oh, you want to know what? Another puzzle piece that outside of movies, that's allowed, right?
Sure, go for it.
So go into comic books, and this is another great comic book series that I loved, is a comic book series called The Thunderbolts, which, oh man, wow. Thinking about it, there are a million, or many rather, not actually a million, but there are many parallels between when the Thunderbolts premiered and Mysterio here, because the whole premise of the Thunderbolts was back in the 90s, if you recall, the what are now the Avengers, the Marvel Cinematic Universe heroes, they were all killed off in the main universe in 1997, I believe, or 96. They were killed off in the main universe. So Captain America, Iron Man, all of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, they were all killed off in the main universe, and they were pulled into a pocket universe and relaunched. And they did this with like top artists, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld. So these super huge artists at the time, and they were doing it in order to try and basically just sell comic books.
Sure.
Because Marvel was floundering at the time. They were about to go into bankruptcy. And so in the main universe, the Thunderbolts, they were like the new Avengers. That's how they were billed. They're like, hey, we're creating this new super team. It's all new characters. It's the Thunderbolts. They're coming in here to take the place of the Avengers. And then at the end of the first issue, it's revealed that the Thunderbolts are actually the masters of evil in disguise, pretending to be superheroes, just like Mysterio in this movie.
That rules.
And I was, and it's like Mysterio's like, oh, Iron Man's gone, and it's like Captain America's gone. The world needs a new hero. I can jump in here and do this and kind of fool everybody.
God, that's so funny. There's so many parallels with like various comic book stories. Like, that's why it's so damn. That must be why it's so damn easy for them to make these damn movies and make them so successful, because they have so much to pull from.
Yes, they do. 100, and they don't even. And one of the great things about the MCU has been that they pull from the source material, but they aren't dogmatic about it. They don't go that we have to do it exactly the same way. They create new situations and characters and worlds that still feel like Marvel. And it's the core of the characters, and they get that right, but they're not sitting there going, oh, well, we have to do the Dark Phoenix saga because, that was one of the best stories in the comic book. So we're the X-Men and we have to make this horrible movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie, by the way.
I honestly didn't think it was as bad as they make it out to be, but it's not great. Let's put it that way. Well, it's all right.
Mean, yeah. When I watched Apocalypse, I kind of walked out of that going like, it wasn't bad. It was just a movie.
Exactly.
There wasn't anything really all that wonderful or special about it.
Exactly. That's what this one's like. Although there's some pretty good unintentionally funny moments though, so I'll just say that and move on. But right on. Let me go to another puzzle piece here. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mysterio's whole, crazy alternative reality effects and creating these big trippy, mind-bending things that just totally fool the people.
So were we talking about that specific scene?
Yeah.
And what's it, Berlin is where they're at?
I believe so, yeah. And this is specifically to when he's totally just blowing Peter Parker's mind and there's just absolutely nothing he can do to get out of it because it's just everything is crumbling around him. And I'm going to cite a very bad movie here. So Spider-Man fans, please know I did enjoy this movie, but I'm going to cite the movie Lawnmower Man. Because of just the use of this just crazy, trippy universe that they're bringing the character into, and they just are completely lost and have no way of finding any kind of footing or being able to do anything within it. They're just stuck and lost,
I loved that scene. And I kind of wanted to, I racked my brain trying to think of what that would be influenced by. And that, I think that's where my visual references don't necessarily exist. I could think of examples in the comic books.
Sure.
Where Mysterio just completely pulled the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wrote down was Kevin Smith's run on Daredevil, where Mysterio ended up being the mastermind bad guy. And basically Daredevil is running around with a baby that he thinks is the Antichrist because Mysterio is tricking him into thinking that.
That sounds crazy.
It is. It's bonkers that run, but it actually kind of stays grounded. Weirdly enough, it's for how grounded Kevin Smith is in his movies.
Sure.
He's very much about talking about the mundane in his movies. I guess, that was the preview to the land of Tusk, eventually it's like, oh, he can go really crazy.
He sure can. He could do something lately.
Yeah. So I couldn't think of anything similar to that. It was kind of like that, the Doctor Strange, mirror universe thing.
I thought about using that as the example as well, and then I was like, I'm going to go to Lawnmower Man instead.
Right, yeah, because I'm trying to think of stuff outside of it. And actually, the one that I just thought of, what's the name of that movie? Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne in space horror movie.
Oh, Event Horizon, the scariest movie ever made.
Event Horizon. It was the scariest movie when I was a kid. And then when I watched it again as an adult, I was like, this is kind of dumb.
Look, it is dumb and corny as hell, but it will still give me nightmares. I don't care what anybody says. It's scary as shit.
There's all those scenes where like Sam Neill is like, is he hallucinating? Is it real? Then, that could also come into this kind of that illusion scene.
I suppose you could even point to the bowling pin scene in The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah, totally. Which that's more he's supposed to be high, right?
That's true. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
I don't think Peter Parker's doing any drugs in this scene. So.
Yeah, because the go-to for always like the visual stuff is 2001 or something like that.
Sure.
But this feels different than that. This feels much more confusing and off-putting and there's much higher stakes emotionally for Peter Parker at this point because he just learned that everything is not what he thought it was. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we're pulling away more and more layers of showing him how much wasn't actually what he thought it was.
Right.
And he starts to really question how much of it was really real. Mm-hmm. As an audience member, I was sitting there going, was all of this European trip totally fake?
Yeah.
Has he just been in a warehouse somewhere? In New Jersey for the entirety of this movie?
It's completely possible. And
yeah.
I think another thing that's interesting about, as long as we're talking about this whole trippy sequence is, whereas in a lot of movies where, it's all about like hallucination, this is actually designed by the bad guy. Like they show him like filming scenes basically for it, mm-hmm. and it's a pretty cool, unique take on the trip out scene,
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
So my next puzzle piece, this one, I think I went a little bit way out there.
Okay.
But I definitely, because I went into the movie watching it knowing that we were going to do this, and I was going, I got to find things. And this one occurred to me as I was watching the movie. And the puzzle piece is the poison scene in The Princess Bride.
Oh, okay.
Follow my logic here.
All right.
So there's that reveal when Mysterio is in the bar in Prague.
Mm-hmm.
And the illusions go away. Some of the people are still there. And then he gets up on the bar and he does his, villain speech.
Yeah.
So when he does this speech, he goes a little bit maniacal. And, there was always that trope in, for a while, that it's Jack Nicholson went crazy with the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody thought superhero villains should just be really, really out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of gets there, but he never quite goes over the edge, which is good.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found, so he does the whole he's pointing out the people and it's like, and you helped and we're a team, we're making this thing happen. But there's a part in there where he goes, Tony Stark thought that we were fools, but he was the fool. We're not the fools. And it just made me go with the Sicilian, I think is Wallace Shawn's character in The Princess Bride, where he's like, and it's like, obviously, you couldn't put the glass in front of you because I know that and I'm no fool, and you know that I'm no fool, and I know that you're no fool, and it just felt like that. Like Jake Gyllenhaal went there with it, which I really, really loved. He went just a little bit crazy, where there was logic to it, but it was just absurd logic, and that was his whole motivation as a villain. So they got to have a little bit of fun with it, and it made me think of that scene and. Jake Gyllenhaal didn't then just, freeze frame and fall off camera in a death.
But I think that's part of, aside from just loving him as an actor, just in general, I think that's part of what makes his role here so damn good is you're right. He's taking it so big, but he's stopping right at the line,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, you really need a good actor to be able to pull something like that off. And it's like you've got that Jack Nicholson model, but
Mm-hmm.
looking at like that scene in The Princess Bride, I think that's a great comparison of going big and crazy, but
just enough.
Just enough, exactly. But just
not
enough.
too much, It's Wallace Shawn's character is still, he's still the guy that gets it wrong and gets poisoned.
Yeah.
And I think that all of that comes back at the end too, in the way that Spider-Man, it's in The Princess Bride, Wallace Shawn he's like, well, you're obviously strong and you're smart, but I am the smartest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what Mysterio is doing. Mysterio's character in the comics and all the places has always been, without his illusions, he's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stealing this idea from Scott Nicewander in Nerd Sync. I watched his video on Mysterio and why he loves Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of his point at the end is like, once all the illusions are gone, Mysterio is you hit him once and he's done.
Right.
And it's like he's got no powers or abilities, nothing. Once his illusions are gone, he's nothing. He's always just one punch, and everything is the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that kind of happens with the poison scene, in that Wallace Shawn is sitting there going, no, I can outthink this, but he doesn't realize that Wesley has both brains and brawn, and he underestimates the combination of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happens with Mysterio. He underestimates that Peter Parker has both physical strength and intelligence, and he even has emotional strength too.
Sure.
And and he pulls those things together, and he doesn't necessarily outthink Mysterio at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of punches his way through it a little bit.
Yeah.
But he also uses his Peter Tingle.
Yes.
and trust his instincts and use his brain and kind of go, I need to separate myself from what I'm seeing. I need to do mind over matter a little bit.
Yeah.
And he just puts it all together in order to beat him, in the same way that Wesley can overcome Wallace Shawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go with another puzzle piece here. And I normally try, like, when it's a sequel or part of a superhero universe or any of that, I try not to do too many from that actual universe or sequels or previous entries.
I mean, I've been referencing Spider-Man left and right,
as you should,
movies,
be, because you know this stuff. You know what I mean? So you absolutely should be, and you bring that to it. So I'm totally happy you're bringing up all this Spider-Man stuff. But I am going to bring up another MCU movie. Actually, I'm going to bring up two, but first I'm going to bring up this one. So with the whole the first set of villains, the elementals, I believe they're called, right? The big monsters, and that, of course, Mysterio's helping.
That was the first clue that Mysterio was full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
Was when he goes, the core elements of the universe, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, hydrogen?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, you're doing like Avatar: The Last Airbender here, which is not science at all.
That's so great that you could see that. That's so good. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. But yeah, no, with that whole big misdirect of like, these are the big villains that we're gonna have to battle, and just totally the characters having no idea that they're not battling the real villain, and just the audience really having no idea, unless you're a big Spider-Man fan like yourself. But I was reminded of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 with the big reveal that Ben Kingsley's character is just an actor, and in this case it's just these big projections that aren't really the threat, and the real threat is this other guy who seemed to be a good person.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Did you also notice with the elementals the nods to the Spider-Man villains, the Sandman, Hydro Man, and I think it's Molten Man?
Well, I certainly noticed that they reminded me of, like, they came from the same kind of place as Sandman. I mean, I didn't know those other guys because I didn't read the comics, but Sandman from the Spider-Man 3, of course.
Yeah, you didn't watch the 90s cartoon either?
I might have, but my memory of cartoons is so bad. I don't
Okay.
remember any of the cartoons I watched except Scooby-Doo. So maybe if we do an episode
Okay.
on Scooby-Doo, I can remember some of the main characters.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Hydro Man was in the cartoon, in the 90s cartoon,
Nice.
and Sandman. I don't know about Molten Man,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was basically, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing that I was like, okay, they did Hydro Man, but they didn't really do Hydro Man.
Right.
This, and seeing the trailers, I had a feeling that if they were going to use those villains, they would have used those villains. Which is also why, going in, seeing Mysterio and just going like, nah. Which, when I saw the trailer, I saw the first trailer, which was like the teaser, and I knew that Mysterio was the villain, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made the mistake of watching the second trailer, which gave the whole thing about, oh, I'm from another universe, and, the snap knocked a hole in across dimensions.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I kind of wish I didn't see that. I kind of wish I didn't see that they were trying to make Mysterio, like, trick everybody into thinking he's the good guy.
Yeah.
Because I kind of wish I'd just go into the movie and saw that and go, wait, are they really trying to do this?
Right,
or is it a fake out? But I had enough time after seeing the trailer to go, no, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, okay. So here's a question: you being a big comic book guy, were you surprised with the Mandarin? What they ended up doing with him?
Yes.
Yeah,
that
really
definitely surprised me. I did not see that coming at all because the Mandarin is a huge Iron Man villain.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me because I was never that big into Iron Man to begin with. Because what a lot of people don't know nowadays is that Iron Man, he was B-list in the 90s.
Right. Yeah.
On his best day, he was B-list.
I feel like Ghostface Killah brought him back. I feel like he's responsible for his resurgence.
I think that. I think that it was the 2008 movie. Yeah, the 2008 movie.
Was
because I remember when they did that, and I was like, okay, they're making an Iron Man movie now. Sure, I guess they're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
and that was before that we knew that they were going to build the MCU and all that stuff. And I was like, it looks cool. And I'm like, hey, Robert Downey Jr. He look, I saw Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He's cool in that.
Sure.
Maybe he'll be good in this. Little did I know, So Mandarin, yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. Not at all. I think there was a little part of me that wanted Ben Kingsley to be the bad guy.
Sure.
But,
he's so good.
But that movie wasn't about the bad guy.
Right.
That movie was about Tony Stark's journey back to being a hero.
Yeah.
After realizing, the how how hard it could really be to be a hero.
Yeah.
And so, I thought that movie was really great in that storyline. Just all of the very Shane Black stuff of it was really, really good.
I love Shane Black.
Yeah. Did you see the most recent Predator movie? It's
so dumb, but I have this fan theory about it. Okay, I don't know if you happen to listen to our episode. I talk about it on the episode. My fan theory of the Predator is if you go back and watch like a lot of like 80s movies that we all love, they're very dumb, but based on like nostalgia, they're great, I feel like he was trying to capture that and do it like not update it whatsoever and just make a purely dumb, gory, inappropriate action movie. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit because I love a lot of his other movies. But that's my fan theory right there.
That sounds about right. And that seems like his brand,
Yeah.
Which, it's funny. I think the same thing about the Star Wars stuff. So many people have put so much meaning into Star Wars that they're no longer able to enjoy the movies now.
Right.
And I love the new movies. I think they're all great. And The Last Jedi especially so.
I'm on board.
As I think that all the people who got into Star Wars and got really into the hero's journey side of things and are writers and they follow characters and things like that, that whole movie was about defying expectation in very satisfying ways.
Yeah.
And so I loved it for that reason. And I'm not usually a person who likes that kind of stuff that really breaks down the stuff into like totally opposite. I'm like, just let it be what it is.
Right.
I felt like that movie really balanced the line so well of giving us the characters still in a new and surprising way.
Sure.
So,
absolutely. Well, what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
Okay, I think this is my last puzzle piece, if that's cool.
Sure.
So my last puzzle piece, and I'm going to go back to another MCU movie now. And this is not something that I came up with on my own. I found it while watching, the YouTube, all the Easter eggs from Spider-Man Far From Home videos on YouTube. And in one of the comments sections, someone had mentioned this, and I didn't notice it in the theater, but then, and I probably should have taken down this user's name or something to credit them, but there's the part in the final action sequence where Peter is on the London Bridge, I guess, and there's that sign that falls down, and he grabs the sign and takes that like a shield, and then he picks up a piece of one of the drones, I believe.
Yeah.
And then he walks off. He walks off with the shield in one hand and the drone and the piece of the drone in the other. And someone pointed out that that's meant to mimic the moment that Captain America steps out in Endgame with the shield, with the broken shield, and Thor's hammer with Mjolnir. And I was just like, oh, holy crap, that is so 100% what he was like. And that was Peter Parker's thinking, he's going, I'm going to do, I need to be a hero and I need to be my own hero.
Yeah.
But he's copying, his idols like Captain America, but he does it in a very Spider-Man kind of way.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man he's always supposed to be, barely keeping his head above water. He's always supposed to be, and he's supposed to be street level. So he doesn't have, Cap, shield, and Mjolnir. He has this broken this broken sign from the bridge and a broken piece of drone, and that's what he goes into battle with.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And I love that about the character. That, he's basically just trying to soak up as much heroism as he can from the other bigger Avengers, Yeah, that's fun. I like that.
And that's what the whole movie is him just going, how can I be a hero in a world without Iron Man and Captain America?
Yeah.
Which is cool, which, going back like to way back in the original comics, I guess. Yeah, because I think that Captain America was definitely around. I'm not sure about Iron Man, but the big Marvel characters at the time were the Fantastic Four. So a lot of the early Spider-Man stuff that Stan Lee was actually writing was about him kind of going like, I'm no Johnny Storm. I can't be a hero like the Fantastic Four. It's like, I'm just doing anything I can.
Sure.
And that's, and that's what's great that they were able to pull that forward. Like they have that emotional context of the original comics, but in a different world. They pulled that forward into the 21st century where in the MCU, we've got the Avengers instead of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I like that puzzle piece. And I've got two more. So I'll knock these out. First one is actually two movies that I was just going to kind of combine. And that is Eurotrip and American Pie. Just two classic goofy teenager movies, and obviously we don't have Scotty Doesn't Know. This could have used a good song, but
yeah, and we've already burned our Matt Damon cameo in Thor Ragnarok.
Yes. So, although I'm sure they could find another spot for him at some point. But but there's so much, and of course it was like this in Homecoming as well. They're really trying to fill these movies as much action and spectacle as there is. There's also a lot of good good, just youthful humor, and
Yeah.
lots of goofy stuff like that. And really, there's some really great bits in this too. The stuff with his buddy, I can't remember his name, his best friend, Ned, yeah, and
Yeah.
his new girlfriend, and then they break up, of course.
Betty Brant.
Yeah, and then
because those are characters from the comics.
They
are totally, they're totally different in the movies. Because Ned is supposed to be Ned Leeds in the comic, who is a reporter, and he's also in a lot of the. Actually, is he in the Daredevil TV show? Is that the character? I think it is Ned Leeds in the Daredevil TV show. Who's the reporter in that? And then, or is it? I don't know. I have to go back and look. But he's a reporter character, and then Betty Brant is also another reporter character.
Oh wow!
Who I think originally she is J. Jonah Jameson's secretary, and then she becomes a reporter later. And she is in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. That character played by Elizabeth Banks.
Oh, okay.
And she's in all three movies, and she's the one that Peter kind of like flirts with,
sure,
yeah, but very poorly,
yeah,
in those movies.
Nice,
but yeah, those are real characters, but they are totally different characters. The Ned in these movies is more based on the character of, and I believe his name is pronounced Genki, in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe. Who is the Miles Morales Spider-Man, his buddy.
Oh, okay.
And that's who and trust me, if you just go and just type in Ganke Spider-Man and look up a picture on Google,
yeah,
and you'll be like, "Oh crap. That's Ned from the movie."
Oh yeah, for sure. I just did myself, and you're 100% right.
Yeah. And it's like, oh wow, that's Ned. Yeah,
that's some good casting right there.
Yeah.
All right, and I got one more, like I said, and I did say I had another MCU movie. It's actually probably my favorite of the MCU, and I know a lot of people were not as big on this as I was, but after
Thor: The Dark World, right?
No, it was not Thor: The Dark World, which I actually is one of the few MCU movies I have not seen, and from what I hear, I'm not missing much. But
it's basically, you get a lot of great Loki stuff, and then everything else in the movie is not very good.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've heard. But no, we followed up Endgame with a lighter, more fun movie. And of course, we followed up Infinity War with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which again was a lighter, more just fun movie. And I think this really feels like almost like a companion piece to that, with like just another still awesome, still huge when it, as most of these Marvel movies are, but definitely to a little bit of a smaller scale, definitely more character and relationship based, and a lot more fun and a lot like funnier, and definitely like kind of lightening that mood a little bit after such a huge previous installment in this series.
Yeah, I love that it goes from the snap to the blip.
Yes. Yes.
And they definitely play that up a little bit more for laughs here, instead of being the all the boats for some reason stranded at Liberty Island in front of the Statue of I don't understand that. I still don't understand why there are boats that are stranded on that island.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense to me why that was an image at all in that movie. But, it's like those harrowing 5 years. And I love that basically they just said, okay, if you were a character in a Spider-Man movie, you were snapped out of existence.
Yeah.
Because it just makes the most sense to have them all be back.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Aunt May also got it too, because I can't imagine like that 5 years of Aunt May just being, oh, Peter, he's gone. It's so much better that she doesn't have that weight of that, so she can just be there right with Peter and just be like, I don't know, nothing's really changed except for the date on the calendar.
Sure.
Yeah. Which made so much more sense. And you're right though, like having fun with it. I really enjoyed that, and I'm so excited about the next phase of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I have no idea what shape it's gonna take. But I'm extremely interested in it. I'm still waiting for Marvel to really screw it up.
Yeah. It sure doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Nothing lasts forever, but I mean, yeah, I don't see it stopping anytime soon, that's for sure.
Yeah. The closest we can get is Thor the Dark World and
go.
Iron Man 2, which are both still fine as movies.
Yeah.
It's just that they have all the other Marvel movies to contend with.
Yeah.
So, they end up towards the bottom. And
for sure.
And I'm really interested in seeing what interesting stuff they're going to do. And I'm excited the fact that the MCU universe is officially moving into miniseries with the Disney Plus stuff that's coming out in the fall.
Yeah.
No idea what that's going to look like. So I think it's all going to get revealed next week at Comic-Con.
Yeah, I guess it's good timing that this episode hits right before Comic-Con. That should be good.
Yeah, so that way
get them hashtags
all the listeners can be as confused with us.
All right, well, I'm going to do the finished puzzle, and then we'll get to any closing thoughts we had on Spider-Man Far From Home. So the finished puzzle includes Daria, The Breakfast Club, Mission Impossible Fallout, as well as the original Mission Impossible, Lord of the Rings, the Thunderbolts series, Kevin Smith's Daredevil series, The Princess Bride, Iron Man 3, Avengers Endgame, Eurotrip, American Pie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think I skipped Lawnmower Man while I was reading down my list. Yes, I did. So, and Lawnmower Man. So, do you have any other thoughts about this movie?
Sad that we didn't get a Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
It definitely felt it missing. It's weird, it's should be such a nothing thing, but he's had so many cool ones, and the last Spider-Man was really, really good, where he's like, "Hey, Margie," or whatever, the woman's name that he's yelling at.
Yeah.
Or he's yelling at Peter Parker. And his cameo in, I know this isn't MCU, but his cameo in Spider-Verse, where he was like, "Yeah, me and Spider-Man were friends, and it's like, oh, Stan Lee, and that was right after.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Stan Lee has been a huge figure in my life, my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably one of the first names I knew as someone who's famous, and it's definitely the first name I recognized from comic books was Stan Lee. Even though he wasn't writing comic books in the 90s, you'd think that maybe Dan Jurgens, who wrote The Death of Superman, which was huge when I was a kid, that would be the name that I would know, which I do know it. But, Stan Lee has gone on to become such a huge figure in the world. And, just missed him a little bit, and love the movie overall. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 of Marvel movies, but it's still in the top half. Now that we have 20 some odd movies, it's
yeah, right. It's difficult.
It's weird to say that, but I do enjoy all of them basically. So
sure.
Me saying that is basically like saying, I don't know, what's your favorite candy? It's
right.
like, well, it's all candy. You still like it.
Exactly. Well, the only other thing I wanted to mention is the director of this movie, Jon Watts. He made a really great little indie movie called Cop Car a few years ago. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's starring Kevin Bacon and Shea Wiggum.
I've heard good things about it.
Oh, it's a great movie, and I did not know when I saw this that he had directed. Well, I found out like literally like that day that he had directed it, and I was like, oh wow, it's that dude. That's awesome. And so I'm super psyched about that he went on to make such a great Marvel movie. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, and his vision for Spider-Man is so awesome. Oh, what's the song that plays over the end credits? What
was it?
Last time it was the Ramones, and there is another Ramones song in here when they like go to hold hands.
Sure.
The romantic Ramones song plays, but is it Vacation?
Oh yeah, it is. It's Vacation, I think. Was over the end credits. And of course, and of course, I Will Always Love You over the opening, which was pretty great.
Oh yeah. And then the score by Michael Giacchino. And because I went and saw the movie with a friend of mine who's a professional musician. He's actually a an opera singer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he knows all like the scores and stuff. And
Sure.
so he knows the name Michael Giacchino. We were talking about the music and how good it is.
Yeah,
And he's like, yeah, Michael Giacchino, who steals from so many other people. And I'm like, hey, who cares?
And yeah, it was definitely a vacation. I just brought it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, right on. This was great, Bill. You want to recommend something else that you've watched recently?
Sure. So what I watched recently, which I was at home all day by myself. My wife was off doing stuff, and I had literally nothing to do now that my podcast has come to an end. And I was like, man, what do I do with my time when I'm not podcasting? And it turns out, go be a guest on other podcasts.
There you go.
But also what I did was I was just kind of going through Amazon Prime looking for something to watch. And I had heard good things about this movie, a movie called Searching, starring John Cho.
Oh, it's so good.
And for anyone who hasn't seen it, the entire premise is that basically the entire movie takes place on a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds gimmicky, and there's a few parts that it kind of verges on that, but they do it so well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few parts where it's like, okay, would you really use FaceTime right here? No, probably not. But in order to keep the movie going, it works.
Yeah.
And it's a great crime thriller. It has kind of like that feeling of like the true crime podcast right now.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
It has the benefit of being fiction, so they can really pull at your emotional heartstrings. And it's about a dad, John Cho, whose daughter goes missing, and he's going through her computer and his search for his daughter. And it has a bunch of twists and turns, and I'm not going to say that it's the most surprising twist that's ever happened. It's still kind of a murder mystery movie. And you can kind of see the dots that are connected, but the way that it reveals everything is so novel that you forgive those little things. And it has a very emotional, cathartic feeling to it.
Yeah.
So because of all that, it comes together in a very surprising and good way. That maybe if it were just a traditional thriller, that story wouldn't have come together as well.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend watching it because it is a good viewing experience, not just a, okay, this is a fun movie. They do something interesting. They take something a genre you're familiar with and turn it on its head a little bit.
Yeah.
And bring it interesting and cool places.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I completely agree. And I did not expect to like that movie as much as I did. It ended up in my top 10 last year. It's like seriously so well done, so inventive, and it takes a gimmick that could be just so gimmicky and makes it something that really adds to the story. And just it's so effective both in a cool way and emotionally. I mean, it really works. And anyone listening, if you haven't seen it, make sure you go see it and then go listen to our episode from last year about it. So
I'm 100% sure that they're going to make a sequel with none of the, just the studio that owns it is going to make a sequel, not the director, writers, actors, whatever. They're going to make a sequel and it's going to be awful.
Please, God, no.
You just know that they're going to do that.
I pray that doesn't happen.
Well, because they're going to misunderstand and they're going to think the thing that makes it good is the gimmick. But it's not,
Yeah, boat movies. We need more boat movies. So, Bill, where can people find your stuff?
Everything with the Great Albums, you can find thegreatalbums.com. Even though the podcast isn't releasing as much stuff, we still have a blog that will be going strong over the next few months. I don't write any of it, my friends do. And you can also find all the social media stuff at The Great Albums or The Great Albums. It's all there at thegreatalbums.com. You can also find my band, Fake Pockets, on Spotify, on Bandcamp, on Facebook. Type in Fake Pockets and we'll appear. You can listen to us And I'll throw this out there for anybody listening in New Jersey who likes good power pop music. A few weeks from now, we're actually playing a really cool show at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, the legendary Stone Pony, as everyone refers to it here in New Jersey. We're playing the Stone Pony, and they do these summer stage shows, which are these outdoor shows, and then local bands play an opening set indoors. So we get to open for one of my favorite artists, which is Ben Folds.
Nice.
And the Violent Femmes are playing there. We're playing that show. So it's going to be really awesome. So if you're like, I don't really know if I want to go to a local show, but you're in New Jersey and you like those bands, you could be like, well, I can go see a band I like and check out Bill's dumb band and see if maybe they're actually any good. I think we are. I think it's a really good lineup for us to be on because those bands definitely work within our world of music. So that's on August 2nd. Tickets are available on the internet.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad we finally did this. I'm so happy you were able to join me for an episode. And I'm excited to hear your EP that's coming later this year.
Yeah, me too, actually.
I bet you are, man.
Forgive the interruption, but I believe this requires your attention.
If you ever believed Captain America was on the U.S. Olympic soccer team.
If you ever thought that the Winter Soldier was that brace yourselves guy on the internet.
And if you ever wondered just what would a raccoon do with a machine gun.
Then don't let another week pass you by without tuning into
Mighty Marvel Geeks.
Mighty Marvel Geeks is your show about all things Marvel.
With news, rumors, commentary, and interviews.
As well as our weekly recommendations on what to pick up on New Comic Book Day.
Official consulting hours are between 8 and 5 every other Thursday.
That's Mighty Marvel Geeks on WeebieGeeks.net, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
All right, so that does it for today's episode of Piecing It Together. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and you really should go check out those back episodes of the Great Albums podcast. Go check out the episode I did on Tenacious D. It's a really fun one. So that does it for today. I do want to remind you all to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You could also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. I'd love to hear what you're thinking of the show. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod. You can join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we talk about all these movies. Lots of cool people in there to talk movies with. And, all that stuff. All the above. Do it all. That would be awesome. I love that people are out there listening, and I thank you so much for the support. So, let's leave you all with a piece of my music, as we always do on this show. I think today I will play another track from my album Head Like Fire. I've been playing a lot of tracks from this album lately, but I've also been listening to it a lot lately as I'm starting to get into the planning stages of a new album. And let's go with the track Trying Again. I dig this song, and I hope you enjoy it too. So, let's play Trying Again, and we will be back soon with more Piecing It Together. I must say, we're in the middle of recording literally 6 or 7 new episodes over the next week or two. So there's a lot more Piecing It Together coming your way. So make sure you're subscribed.
and all points west.